A US Army Ranger commander stood on the humid tarmac of a secretive Australian training base and made a wager he would likely regret. $24,000 says my team can get through your urban gauntlet faster and cleaner than any other unit has before. The Australian SAS commander, a man with eyes that had seen too much, gave a slow, knowing smile. Double it, and the losing unit provides a 6-month supply of Tim Tams and Budweiser for the winner squadron. They shook hands, the Americans brimming with a quiet professional confidence. They had no idea what they had just agreed to or what was about to unfold in the dusty, claustrophobic streets of the mock city. What happened in the next 2 minutes, a brief and brutal window of simulated combat, would reverberate through special operations communities across the globe, forcing a fundamental revaluation of what elite truly means in the 21st century. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Callahan had every reason for that confidence. His Ranger platoon, hailing from the prestigious 75th Ranger Regiment, was at the absolute peak of readiness. They were fresh from a punishing rotation in the Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, and before that, real-world deployments that had honed their skills in complex, high-stakes environments. These weren't just infantrymen, they were masters of the military art, experts in airborne assaults, direct action raids, and seizing key terrain. For 18 years, Callahan had led men like these. From the mountains of Afghanistan to the deserts of the Middle East, he'd worked with the Australians in combat, respected them immensely, their toughness, their tenacity, their unique brand of quiet professionalism. They were, by all accounts, superb soldiers. But he also knew the undeniable edge the American system possessed: overwhelming technological superiority, near-limitless funding for the latest gear, and a continuous, grinding cycle of combat experience that kept their skills razor-sharp as his team rolled into the purpose-built urban operations training facility at Swanburn. They were ready to show their allies what American precision, speed, and firepower could achieve. The Australian facing him was Major Liam Digger Kent. With 22 years in the Special Air Service Regiment, he looked nothing like the stereotypical Special Forces operator. He was lean, almost wiry, with a sun-weathered face and a calm, unhurried manner. He didn't command the room with his presence. He simply occupied it, a stillness at the center. During the initial briefing, Callahan, eager to test his team and forge camaraderie through competition, decided to make things interesting. "Major Kent," he began, "your reputation for urban warfare training precedes you. We've studied the Battle of Mogadishu. We know the challenges, but I'm curious, how does your core philosophy here differ from our METC training back at Benning?" Kent considered the question, his hands folded on the table. "Different beasts, I suppose," he said softly, his accent flattening the vowels. "You build a machine of immense force and precision. We cultivate a predator's instincts for chaos. Similar end goal, vastly different paths to get there." Callahan leaned back, a confident smile playing on his lips. "While paths are meant to be walked and timed, how about a friendly wager? My platoon against your troop, your most complex urban drill. $24,000 says we set a new benchmark." The room, filled with both American and Australian personnel, went quiet. The Aussies exchanged glances that were impossible to read. Kent was silent for what felt like a long time, studying the American officer. Then he spoke, his voice still quiet but carrying absolute clarity. "Double the bet, and the losing unit supplies the sweets and the suds for the next half year. Those are my terms." Callahan's grin widened. It sounded like easy money, a fantastic story for the boys back at Fort Benning. "You're on. What's the scenario?" "The 2-minute gauntlet," Kent stated simply. "A hostage rescue, high-value target extraction in a dense multi-block urban environment. Hostiles, civilians, and complications are mixed. Zero tolerance for collateral or hostage casualties. The clock starts at the insertion point and stops when the package is secure at the exit." Callahan nodded. This was Ranger bread and butter, time-sensitive, target-centric direct action. "Perfect. We'll go first. Set the time to beat as you wish," Colonel Kent replied, that faint, unsettling smile returning. Something in that calm acceptance should have been a warning siren in Callahan's mind, but the confidence of his team was a roar that drowned it out. The gauntlet was not a single building but an entire simulated city block, complete with multi-story structures, narrow alleyways, rooftop access points, subterranean tunnels, and a labyrinth of interconnected rooms. It was designed to replicate the nightmarish complexity of modern megacity combat, where threats could come from any direction at any time. The briefing was deceptively straightforward. Locate and extract one high-value individual being held in the central structure, neutralize all hostiles, and minimize civilian casualties. The complication was the fog of war setting. Limited intelligence non-combatants who might be threats, hostiles in civilian attire, and a dynamic scenario where enemy positions and civilian movements were not scripted but reacted to the assaulting force's actions. Callahan handpicked his best 8-man team, operators who had conducted actual raids under night vision in places like Mosul and Ramadi. Standard dynamic entry protocol. He briefed them. Speed, violence of action, and overwhelming force. "We own the tempo. We've done this in reality. This is just training. Fast in, hard hit, clean out. Show them how the regiment operates." His men nodded, checking their kit with the practiced efficiency of a ritual. They were locked, loaded, and mentally primed for a textbook execution. The rangemaster's voice crackled over the comms. "Timer ready. On your mark." Callahan gave the signal. "Execute, execute, execute." What followed was a spectacle of American military might and precision. The Rangers hit the first building like a thunderclap. A controlled explosion blew the reinforced door inward, followed immediately by a cascade of flashbang. The lead team flowed through the breach in a perfect stack, clearing angles with mechanical efficiency. Their movements were crisp, their communication a staccato burst of clear calls. Door, right, clear, moving, contact left, neutralized. They cleared the first structure in under 30 seconds, a blur of coordinated motion. But the scenario immediately began to adapt. As they exited into the courtyard, a simulated marketplace, the monitors showed civilians scattering in panic from multiple directions. Two figures, dressed identically to the fleeing crowd, suddenly wheeled and raised weapons. The Rangers, trained for positive identification, hesitated for a critical half-second. Simulated gunfire erupted. One Ranger was tagged, marked as a casualty by the laser tag system. Man down. Man down. The team adapted instantly, laying down suppressive fire and dragging their comrade to cover. But the flawless tempo was broken. The clock kept ticking. They pushed forward, clearing a narrow alleyway. Here, the Australians had engineered a perfect ambush point. A hostel, concealed on a rooftop, had a clean line of sight down the entire lane. The team focused on the doorways at ground level, didn't check the high angle until it was too late. Another simulated casualty. Now down to 6 effective operators. The pressure mounted. They fought their way to the target building, breaching the final room with aggressive determination. They secured the HVT and neutralized the last 2 hostiles. The buzzer sounded, piercing the sudden silence in the observation room. The final time flashed on the screen. 4 minutes, 48 seconds. All hostiles were neutralized, and the HVT was secure. But they had taken to simulated casualties and, during the chaotic market engagement, a laser tag system had registered a round striking a non-combatant, a catastrophic failure in the rules of engagement. Callahan stared at the screen, his mind racing. It was a decent time given the complexity, but the casualties and the civilian hit were glaring flaws. He turned to Kent, forcing a confident tone. "Your turn, Major. That's a tough time to beat, especially if you want to avoid the mistakes we made." Kent's expression remained unchanged, that calm masked firmly in place. "Colonel Callahan, I should clarify," he began, his voice almost apologetic. "The scenario you just ran is what we call the familiarization run. It's for visiting units in inter-allied training. The static enemy positions, the somewhat predictable civilian flow." A cold knot began to form in Callahan's stomach. "Familiarization? What are you talking about?" Kent gestured toward the sprawling facility. "The actual gauntlet, the one our troops train on for selection and continuation, is different. Same terrain, same objectives, but we add layers. We call it the swarm. The enemy doesn't hold positions. They actively hunt the assaulting team. They flank. They set traps. They use the civilians as moving screens. The civilians aren't scripted. They're role players with autonomy, some of whom may be armed sympathizers. The lighting is dynamic strobe effects simulating power flashes, fires, and smoke grenades are deployed by the opposition force to degrade sensors and visibility. And the zero-tolerance rule extends. Any non-combatant hit, even by a ricochet in the system's calculation, is an automatic mission failure." One of the Ranger team leaders, still sweating from the exertion, muttered under his breath, "That's not training, that's a bloody video game on nightmare mode." "No," Kent corrected gently, his eyes holding that distant look. "That's Terran Cowton 2010, that's the back streets of Fallujah. We succeeded in those places not because we had a perfect plan, but because we trained for the plan to disintegrate the moment we made contact. We trained for the swarm." Callahan's earlier confidence was now thoroughly evaporated. "What's your record time for that version?" he asked, almost not wanting to hear the answer. 2 minutes, 18 seconds, Kent stated flatly. "Set by the troop you're competing against today. 0 casualties, friendly or civilian." The HVT was extracted without a scratch. The Americans in the room fell utterly silent. The number was ludicrous. 2 minutes to navigate that chaos, against a thinking, reacting enemy, and make perfect split-second don't-shoot decisions. It defied the very physics of combat. "That's impossible," Callahan breathed. Kent's faint smile finally reached his eyes. "Shall we demonstrate? Before we see this impossible standard in action, consider what it means to be truly elite in a world of chaos. Is it about having the most advanced technology, or is it about cultivating an instinct that operates faster than technology can process?" If you're fascinated by these moments where military doctrine is rewritten in real time, hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into the untold stories of special operations forces around the world, the drills that break men, and the philosophies that win wars. What you're about to see next is a masterclass in modern warfare, and you won't want to miss a single detail. The Australian SAS troop that stepped to the starting line looked nothing like the chiseled, high-speed operators of popular imagination. They were older, their faces etched with experience rather than gym-honed perfection. Their gear was practical, worn-in, and devoid of the latest high-speed accessories that adorned the Rangers' kits. They moved with an economical grace, no wasted motion, no pre-mission bravado. Their silence was profound, but their eyes gave them away. They held a focused, predatory stillness, the calm of men who have navigated the edge of the abyss so many times that the darkness holds no mystery, only familiar terrain. The scenario reset. On the monitors, the observers could see the changes. The light levels dropped, simulating dusk. Civilians began moving in erratic, unpredictable patterns, and the hostile force, now dressed in a mix of military and civilian clothing, started dispersing, melting into the environment, rather than holding defensive positions. "Timer ready," the rangemaster announced. "On your mark." The Australian team leader, a wiry sergeant known only as Echo, gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. "Go." What unfolded over the next 138 seconds was a thing of chilling, beautiful efficiency that seemed to rewrite the rules of close-quarters battle. The Australians did not breach and clear in the American sense. They infiltrated. They didn't blow the first door. They found an unlocked side window and flowed through it like smoke, silent and unseen. Their first engagement occurred in the market square, the same place that had cost the Rangers a man. 3 potential hostiles were mixed with a dozen fleeing civilians. The American team had stopped, tried to PID. The Australians never broke stride. As they moved through the crowd, their weapons followed their gaze, which was constantly scanning, assessing. 2 of the hostiles made a move before the simulated weapons were fully raised. 2 suppressed shots from different angles registered hits. The third hostile, seeing his comrades fall, froze, a role player reacting perfectly. An Australian operator was already on him, not with a killing shot, but closing the distance, physically controlling him and disarming him in one smooth motion. A living capture. Time from entry to threat neutralization, 22 seconds. No pause, no established perimeter, just continuous, flowing motion. They didn't even stop to confirm the kills. A ranger whispered, watching the monitor in awe. They knew. That was it. They moved with a preternatural certainty, a shared mental map of the battlefield that seemed to transcend verbal communication. Their hand signals were minimal. They moved as a single organism, each man instinctively covering the angles left exposed by his teammates' movement. They approached the alleyway where the ranger had been picked off from the roof. Instead of stacking and clearing down the alley, one pair provided cover while another 2 used a drainpipe and window ledge to scale the building's side in seconds, emerging on the roof above and behind the concealed sniper. The threat was neutralized from an unexpected axis before he even knew he was being hunted. The clock read 58 seconds. As they approached the target building, the swarm tactic activated. Hostiles began converging from multiple directions, attempting to pin them down. The Australian team didn't seek cover and return fire in a sustained engagement. They dissolved. One 2-man element peeled off, engaging the flanking force with precise, aimed shots that forced them to take cover. The remaining 6 no, it was now 2 groups of 3 used the distraction to enter the target building from 2 different points simultaneously, the main door and a second-story balcony accessed by a running vault off a low wall. Inside was chaos, strobe lights, thick smoke from a simulated fire, the HVT held with a gun to his head by a final guard. The American solution would have been a delicate hostage rescue shot or a coordinated takedown. The Australian solution was psychological warfare. From the smoke, a voice rang out, calm and commanding in the local dialect the scenario demanded. "Drop it. It's over. Look behind you." As the guard's attention flickered for a millisecond, a shape materialized from the smoke, not in front of him but from a side closet he had sworn was empty. The guard was subdued without a shot being fired. The HVT was secured. The buzzer sounded. Final time, 2 minutes 18 seconds, exactly as promised. 0 friendly casualties, 0 non-combatant hits. Every hostile neutralized or captured. The building, which had been a raging chaos moments before, was now still. The observation room was silent for a full 10 seconds, the only sound the hum of the monitors. The Rangers were not just defeated, they were conceptually dismantled. They had witnessed a different paradigm of warfighting. Callahan finally found his voice, turning to Kent. How, the speed, the identification. In that smoke, with civilians running everywhere, the physics don't add up. Kent leaned forward, his professorial demeanor fully engaged. "It's not about physics, Colonel. It's about psychology and pattern recognition. You train your men to clear rooms. We train ours to read buildings, to understand human behavior under stress. That civilian who trips but his eyes track the weapon, not the exit. That's a pattern. The door that's slightly ajar in a building where every other door is blown open. That's a pattern. The swarm works on predictable fear-based military tactics: flank, suppress, isolate. We don't react to the swarm. We anticipate its movement and flow through the gaps. Your technology is superb. It tells you where the enemy is. Our method is to understand who the enemy is and what he will do before he does it. The 2 minutes isn't about moving fast through space. It's about thinking faster than the battle evolves." The implications of what the Rangers witnessed at Swanburn that day spread far beyond a lost bet and a hefty bill for Tim. It triggered a quiet but profound introspection within the upper echelons of U.S. special operations. The American way of war, built on technological dominance, superior firepower, and meticulously rehearsed battle drills, had meta philosophy that prioritized cognitive dominance, adaptive intuition, and decentralized decision-making. In the years that followed, elements of the swarm philosophy and the hyper-realistic, free-thinking opposition forces began to be integrated into training at places like Fort Bragg and Camp Mackerel. The focus began to shift slightly from solely outfitting the super soldier to also training the superthinker, the operator who could thrive when the comms went down and the plan turned to dust. This story is more than just a tale of a wager lost. It's a stark lesson in the evolution of combat. In the sprawling, densely populated urban landscapes that are the likely battlefields of the future, the traditional model of overwhelming force can become a liability. Collateral damage is not just a humanitarian concern. It is a strategic defeat. The Australian SAS's 2-minute gauntlet proved that sometimes the greatest weapon is not a smarter bullet, but a sharper mind. Not louder communication, but a quieter, deeper understanding. It demonstrated that true elite status is not defined by how you operate when everything goes right, but by how you instinctively react when everything predictably goes wrong. The silent, predatory efficiency you just heard about is Unthinkable, the result of a culture that trains for reality, not for the range. It asks the hard question, in the fog of war, do you trust your gadget or your gut? This channel is dedicated to exploring those hard questions at the intersection of strategy, technology, and human instinct. If this glimpse into the relentless pursuit of combat effectiveness has impacted you, if it's made you rethink what you thought you knew about modern warfare, then do something right now. Hit that subscribe button. It's free, it takes a second, and it's the only way to ensure you don't miss our deep dives into the untold stories that shape the world of special operations and beyond. There are no excuses for staying in the dark. So, what do you think? Does the future of the elite soldier lie in artificial intelligence and augmented reality, or in honing the ancient, human instincts of the hunter? Could the American model, with all its resources, ever truly adopt the minimalist, intuition-based approach of units like the SASR? Leave your opinion in the comments below. We read every single one. If this exploration of tactical evolution fascinated you, if you want to discover more about what the future of conflict truly reserves for us beyond the headlines, then take action now. Click that subscribe button just below this video, and to see a visual breakdown of the very urban combat principles discussed today. To see the geometry of the swarm versus the stack, click now on the video that appears on your screen. The next chapter in understanding modern warfare awaits.